right, good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon session of the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing of February 28th, 2023. We will resume our public hearing agenda this afternoon with item number 6, and I will turn it over to Corey Harala, Director of Preservation, to take us through the next item and the rest of the items on the agenda this afternoon.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sarah. All right, we'll start with public hearing item number 6, LPC 22-10864. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, Block 8068, Lot 31, 319 38th Road, aka 319 Hillside Avenue in the Douglaston Historic District. This is a postmodern style freestanding house designed by Stu Associates and built in 1995. The application is to demolish the existing house, construct a new house, regrade the site, and install retaining walls, a guardrail, and paving.
Okay, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. Chin Lu, if you could unmute yourself, I will give you control of the presentation. Great.
Okay.
And if you could click on your screen, you'll have control and you can advance the slides using your arrow keys or mouse. Perfect. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Hi, my name is Quinn Liu. Hi, commissioners. I'm the project leader for 319 30th Road. The owner purchased this house 6 years ago for themselves with 2 children. They have a large family and they together in this house every year. This is the horizontal and vertical extension of the existing 1.5-story house or partial existing foundation wall to remain. This house is about 120 by 120 irregular shape, 13,500 square feet lot area. Because this is such a big lot, we are proposing only 10% more than the existing lot coverage, which is from 13.67 to 23.53. There are a lot of trees around the property. The current house is not visible from East Drive to Douglas Road. Only partial of the existing house can be viewed on 38th Road, fronting the driveway. This property is not contributing to Douglas Historic District. We have a photo from the 1940s, and front elevation number 1 is the photo after the alternation for 1995. The current front view number 3 is taken last year in December. The other photo shows the existing condition with a lot of tree around the property. This property is on the hill. It slopes about 5 to 7% grade from East Drive to Douglas Road. And then I provided the 38th Road block view for the other side and the existing and proposed elevations. This is the proposed elevation, front elevation view with the material listed. This is the enlarged porch and section of the front porch. This is the side and rear elevation views. This is the building section, shows that partial existing foundation to remain with the new foundation wall on the building's section BB. This is the rendering of the proposed house. It shows the house without the trees. In realistic, the house will not be visible from 38th Road. You can only see partial of the house from the driveway side because of the surrounding trees. And we are proposing iron block retaining wall because of the grade change. I will show you that detail later. And those are the inspiration address from the Douglaston Historic District for us to design the house that we are proposing. And those are the sample materials. We have the shingles, Anderson E series aluminum cladding wood double hung windows, bluestone with brick steps, and we have some raised exterior painted shutters and wood Tuscan columns, and the iron block retaining walls. This is what we're proposing with some greenery on it. This is the building section with the double hung window section and the iron block retaining walls details. This is the seller plan, first floor plan, and second floor plan. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, let's see if we have public testimony, and we may have questions after that. If you're in
Okay.
the meeting and you would like to testify on this item, please raise your hand so we can identify you, and I'll turn it over to Gregory Kala to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received one sign up in advance, that being Lucy Levine from Historic Districts Council. So Lucy Levine, I'll be promoting you to panelist right now. And if you could please state your name for the record and unmute your line, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this proposal to be inappropriate. The building's massing, materiality, and detailing are all awkward and demonstrate a lack of understanding of how to deploy the classical language in the design of a home for this district. HDC asks the Commission to reject this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And I also see a hand raised for Philip Metropolis. So Philip Metropolis, I will be promoting you to panelist right now. And if you could please state your name for the record and unmute your line, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Philip Metropolis. I'm a lifelong resident of Douglaston. I'm an architect in Douglaston, and I grew up in this house for 23 of my first years in Douglaston. My parents bought this property in 1955. At the time, it was a 1924 built colonial revival 1,200 square foot ranch. It sat on top of a mound, an earth plinth, was just about at the same elevation as the uphill, at the garage on the uphill property, and it stood over quite high over the driveway and the downhill side, with great change in the grade with that big hill in front. The house was an unusual plan. It was an inverted H shape. If you recall, you can go to maybe some of those pictures. There were some small gable ends in the existing front facade. And in that facade, those existing gables were part of the original house. The house had an entrance courtyard that was flanked with large casement windows, large French divided light French doors. And my father, and again, the house was sided in a horizontal clapboard. My father, being a contemporary architect out of the 40s, he in 1965 and the 60s, he stripped off all the colonial revival details, stripped off all of the casement windows, and he put in large pane Hope's architectural windows, cedar shake, and large panes of glass, single sheets of glass where the French doors were removed, facing into the courtyard. It was quite an interesting house to grow up in. It was very small, single-loaded corridor as you entered into it. But what's most interesting about this property is that it did not, even though it sat way up on a hill, it did not overscale its neighborhood. If you when you look back at the presentation and you glance at the site plan and look at the figure ground configurations of the block and the adjoining block behind it, you'll see that predominantly the properties are modest in size with modest buildings on them. This particular house, I believe, when it was built in 1924, was built with the intent of having an extra 40-foot lot on the downhill side as an extra building lot. But in the 1960s, when the zoning laws and the health department laws changed, that 40 by 100-foot lot was no longer a building lot. And then my father never pursued to try to get a waiver to try to get a house built there. But he did lay his mark on it. At the time he lived in it. What's interesting about Douglaston, perhaps for the new commissioners who don't know Douglaston, and this being the first project they maybe have seen in Douglaston, Douglaston has basically 5 districts within it where the DMA, Douglas Manor Association deed restrictions describe how many manor lots, which are 20 by 100, are required to build a new home. In the water block or shore road that faces Little Neck Bay, you are required to have 5 manor lots. You must have at least 100 by 100. You can build a small.
Mr. Metropolis, I'm terribly sorry, sir. You're over time. If you could please wrap up your statement.
No problem. The only problem, the issue I wanted to raise to them is that the scale of this home that is proposed doesn't nearly match the scale of the 300 blocks, which are small in nature, modest in nature, and keep overall height down low. That's all I had to say. Just want to give you a history that it was an existing historic contributed house prior to this changes in 1995. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Great. And I'm looking through the attendees list and I don't see any other further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Queens Community Board 11, recommends denial.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'd like to turn back to the applicant. Mr. Liu, would you like to respond to the comments we've heard? We've heard specifically about the scale of it and the detail, the sort of the styling, and you may know more about the discussion at the community board that you may want to respond to.
Yes, the community boards, they say the front elevation is kind of okay, but on the right elevation, the back view on the two-car garage is out of proportion. And yes, we do talk about the owner about it, but they want to insist of going there. Another way we can, we have a second design on it, but we just want to go forward this design first. So the owner will know what you guys want first, so we can go back with the two different designs. Previously, Phillips, I believe. Yes, this is on the hill. So a lot of stuff it's just on the it's on the hill. So the main portion of the building is barely visible from the side, but only partial of the two-car garage is visible. That's why it's out of proportion that way. So, and committee board 11 talk about the retaining walls too on this side. That's why we're proposing add-on block on the next slide with the retaining walls. Keep next slide. Keep going, one more. With the materials, yeah. This is the add-on block retaining wall. We try to keep it the landscape, so it will be like partial retaining, maybe two different parts. So it's not like a whole 6 feet high retaining walls. I guess that's it.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, do we have any final questions? All right, and I just have one question. I know that if you go forward one slide, I can see that there are other buildings in the district that you were using as a model. I think some of these are commission approved buildings,
Yes.
and some are historic. And so that's where you were getting your sort of material window pattern in dormers.
Yes.
All right, can you go back to your building 1 minute? So the one thing that those buildings all have is that they're sort of symmetrically configured. And so this additional wing where the two-car garage is sort of changes that symmetry, and I think is part of what makes it feel a little bit less domestic and a little bit less
Yes.
of a colonial revival style house. How far back is that additional wing set from the main facade? What is the offset?
It's the main one is 4 feet, and then it keeps 4 feet back again, because I don't want to change the grade for the house too much. But if commissioners want me to set that back, I can move it forward, because the square footage I'm still under, plus the lot coverage I'm still under too. So there's a lot of change I can make on it.
Okay, so it's currently set 4 feet back.
Yes, only 4 feet back.
And
So that's why it looks so close.
And is the roof line a little lower, or is that just?
It's a little bit
rendering?
lower.
Okay.
It's already a little bit lower, but it can be more lower.
Okay, and what is the lot coverage of the house?
The lot coverage right now is existing is 13.67, and I'm proposing 10% more, 23.53,
Okay,
or 10% more.
all right, and then you have the sort of center gable that projects forward, and then the sort of double height porch on top of that.
Yes.
Okay.
It will be like a covered porch when they come in from taken from the rain, stuff like that.
And then do you have a photograph of the existing condition, just
Ye-
to sort of
yes.
understand the hill?
It's on front first 2 pages, I believe. This one, yeah, this will work better. You see the street view of the
Mhm.
driveway. This is the house on the side is right next to a tree. Yeah, this one right there. It's a pretty steep. It's a pretty steep slope. And I believe on the next or previous slide, I showed the grading of the house. The next one, the next one. Yeah, this is the grading. It's pretty steep down.
Okay, all right. So
Each
then,
drive's the highest.
and then is your 2-car garage your 2-car garage is on the side with the bigger drop.
Mhm.
Okay, and so then how high does that retaining wall become?
Right now it's total from the front porch to the driveway is about 9 feet.
Okay.
But that's why I try to slope it down and steep it and then do a 2-part retaining wall so to keep the landscape naturally sloping.
Got it. Okay. Right, thank you. Commissioners, does anyone else have any final questions? All right, I am sending you all requests to unmute, so we can now move to our discussion. All right, and Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Holford Smith, would you second that motion?
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed and we'll now begin our discussion on this proposal. And as many of you know, in Douglaston, the designation and then the subsequent master plan that sets up criteria to allow for staff level approvals notes that buildings after a certain period are non-contributing in the historic district. And so this is one of those buildings that falls in that category where we can consider replacing the building with a new building. And this is a historic district with a variety of early 20th century revival styles, suburban setting, detached homes. And I think that a typical lot coverage in the district, or one at least that we've approved with additions and new buildings, is 30%. So with sort of that context, we'll go ahead and have our discussion. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you like to start this one?
Sure. The main issue on this project for me is really the symmetry and asymmetrical composition of the volumes. I mean, there's a symmetrical part that's purely symmetrical, and it has dormers that are symmetrical. It works very well, and then it has this additional piece that has the same proportion as one of the wings, but it only sets back 4 feet. And either you set it back more or make it do something with it, because right now it doesn't quite work. The windows, the proportion of the windows, they solid void. It's kind of odd. The whole thing has a certain kind of oddness of proportion. Even the entrance is too large. I mean, there's this subtlety of proportion that's missing. But I think the biggest thing for me is just the symmetry, asymmetrical.
This is a reminder.
View of
Take out drops.
that makes it difficult for me.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Bland.
I have to admit, it never occurred to me that I would be asked to opine on architecture like this when I joined the commission, but here I am, and I will do so. Notwithstanding the boyhood home of Philip Metropolis, I think it's acceptable, Philip, that we allow the demolition of your home. Seems like it's been changed since you were there anyway. So on to this. Other than saying a few things like, I think the renderings are probably not doing the best of service to the design, actually. If the details can be worked out, it may be that these drawings are a little abstract. But I think more fundamental is the fact that the symmetry, asymmetry is both interesting and a problem. The problem is that it's too close to the, to the bulk of the house. So I would recommend that certainly the roof line has to change. But I would think maybe the whole second level of the area above the garage maybe should be eliminated, or at least if it remains, those become dormer windows in a roof line that is much lower. That will solve a lot of the problems. Faux material should not be allowed. And I think something more elegant than the stone that's being suggested for that wall, the retaining wall, is not in keeping with the best of Douglaston. The rest of it is, and it's a huge rest, are the details which need to be worked out very carefully. Perhaps some before we approve it. I'm not sure. Let's see where we go. But I'm comfortable with staff working with the applicant to revise or to develop those details. But as long as we're not using faux materials, I think we're a long way along the way to something that could be reasonable and appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Holford Smith?
Yes, I agree with the previous comments. It feels like this, it's not quite complete as a design. It seems a little underdeveloped. But certainly if this is the model that they're looking to emulate, then the main body of the house needs to be much more prominent in relationship to that addition, or that L that has the garage. So that needs to be scaled down and pushed back to make it more subservient to the house. I think this really, it's all going to be all about the details, and what I'm seeing here is not really a great depiction of much detail. So I guess we can see how we are as we go around, but whether the applicant can work with staff or whether we want to see this again. But I think that it just needs to be much more fully developed in terms of the retaining wall, which I agree with Fred that material is not really appropriate. I think in general, the demolition of the existing house and this approach to a house is appropriate, but I believe that it needs to come a lot further in its development.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum.
Thank you. I agree 100% with Ann and with Fred, and I would add a few things to it. Number one, I think that the garage, I looked at the streetscape. There isn't a single house that I could see on the streetscape photos on either side of the street that had a street-facing garage. This house didn't have a street-facing garage. You have a street-facing garage, which isn't necessarily inappropriate, but it is definitely unique on the block. Therefore, I think it would be in the design's interest to conceal that as much as possible. That could occur if you either move the curb cut to the right, or if that's not possible, curved the driveway to go towards the right, which would have two effects. Number one, you would start to block the vision of the garage doors. Number two, you would reduce the height of those very, very tall retaining walls, which I think are too tall for a building of 7 feet. 8 feet is too much. So go work with the terrain and reduce the height of those walls. The walls should be brick or stone. They shouldn't be dry laid concrete block. And in terms of the details, what the applicant really has to do is zoom in like he kind of did on the entry gable, and detail it and look carefully at how the Neo-Georgian design worked. There was always a delicate base, often made with carved or molded, especially molded brick. There was always an interesting, if subtle, detail over the windows, not just a simple soldier course. There was, I mean, the cornice here looks very boxy. You've got to put, you know, the style is very simple, the Georgian style, but it's full of very specific, refined details. So you got to really, if you're going to do a historic house, you got to do it right. The other thing is, in terms of the side wing, I agree with everything everyone said. I think that one solution that you could pursue is to make the second floor of it into dormers, drop the roof line down. That is one strategy that we've seen in other examples that makes the house look smaller, make the wing look like an addition. Another way to do it that I believe we saw in Douglaston relatively recently was to make the side piece look like a glazed porch. I think Mr. Metropolis presented one of those, in fact, but I could be wrong. So there are plenty of examples of how to make that asymmetrical side wing feel like an add-on, and that doesn't detract from the symmetry of the center. But I think you haven't done it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Chu.
I think that I agree with all the comments that previous commissioners have made. I have nothing else to add.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg.
I also agree with all the other comments. The one other thing I'd notice, and it may be just how it's drawn, the dormers on the front elevation don't quite line up with the windows below, and they look a little asymmetrical, just slightly off. And that may just be in the drawing, but I'd check that because it just looks strange to my eye.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I also agree with the remarks of previous commissioners. The primary problem here really is the sense that the symmetrical house has an add-on that is not subordinate to the main house. And I think Michael's suggestions were good. I would also say about the garage, it could be front-facing, but normally a front-facing garage in Douglaston would be well set back or separated from the house. And this appears to almost be part of the house. The house presents almost as a kind of institutional rather than residential place because of the look of the front facade. That's partly the rendering, but it's also the subordination.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Master.
I agree with all the previous comments of the commissioners.
Okay. All right. So I think we have a consensus here to sort of support the demolition of the existing building and to do a new building in this particular style. But there are a number of comments about how to really employ the details and massing that it would be typical of this style that aren't quite developed here. The big piece being the wing where the two-car garage is, which throws off the symmetry. And I think there were a lot of suggestions about how that could be set back, reduced, and rethought in terms of its detailing, styling, and roof line, and to make it read as a separate independent wing. And also comments about the retaining wall and just the general details for Neo-Georgian style. So we'll take no action today. We'll ask you to continue to work with the staff to develop those details and the response to the main comments, and we'll have you back when you're ready. So
thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move to the next item now.
The next item is public hearing item number 7. LPC 23-06232. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 646, Lot 27, 875 Washington Street in the Gansevoort Market Historic District. This is a Queen Anne style market building designed by John Jordan, constructed in 1887. The application is to replace storefront infill and install signage.
Okay, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. Glenn, you now have control of the presentation. You just need to click on your screen, and then you can advance the slides using your arrow keys. Perfect. Please unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you may begin. Well, Glenn, hang on a second. I will take the presentation back from you. Could you please unmute yourself? Great, thank you. I will give this back to you. 1 second. Great. Could you please click on your screen? Great, you can advance the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Good afternoon. I'm Glenn Josie again. Welcome. Good afternoon, commissioners. And I have joined here with Carrie Ann. We're from Casa Garrett Architects. And this proposal is for Breitling Retail Store, which does watches. And the location of the property is on the corner of 14th and Washington. The building is a corner through lot building. It goes all the way from 14th Street to 13th Street, and it also fronts on Washington. Our client, Breitling, is taking the storefront on the first floor and does have storefront on the 14th Street side, and it has an entrance on the Washington Street side. And that is highlighted by this area in gray. One of the things to note is that on the corner here, there is an existing freight elevator that opens onto the sidewalk. This first slide here shows the historic tax photos from 1940. This side here is the 14th Street side, which is where our client will be over on this side and on this side. And then there is also the 1940 tax photo that is showing the 13th Street side here. These are the designation photos from 2003 and some photos from more recently. And once again, we are showing the 14th Street side on these two. And on this side, we're showing the 13th Street side. This is an overview of all of the things that we would like to discuss. So the first thing that we have is a brick infill on the Washington Street front side on the corner. Then we also have the installation of louvers with illuminated signage on both the 14th Street side and on the Washington Street side. And we also do have two blade signs, one on the 14th Street side and one on the Washington Street side. And just to give some context in plan, this is where the existing freight elevator is. And we have the installation of the brick infill at this location. And underneath the canopy, we have the installation of the louvers with signage on the 14th Street side here in 3 bays, and on the Washington Street side in these 5 bays. We also do have one illuminated, internally illuminated sign on the 14th Street side and one internally illuminated sign on the Washington Street side. So the first item we'll talk about is the brick infill. And this is a rendering of the brick infill that we are proposing. And you'll notice that the brick here is matching the brick of the rest of the building. And we do have a water table. And we have this circle with keystones around it with the Breitling logo. And the reason why we went for this infill is that this is typical as to what's on the building already. So this is on the corner of 13th Street side. So this is 13th Street here and Washington Street is down here. And so this is a brick infill that they did that was left on the building. And it had a similar type circle with the 4 keystones. And at one point it was a Hogs and Heifer saloon. And so we're trying to image the same look that we had on the 13th Street side onto the 14th Street side, to the Washington Street side. Some of the details that we are looking to replicate is there is a water table on the existing stone, and that water table emulates the curvature of the columns at where the brick wall meets the column, and otherwise it does come flush with the column. And so you'll see here, we are doing the same type of infill, and we are keeping the keystones. We are having brick, and we will weather the logo of Breitling so that it doesn't look brand new, but that it looks more rustic and blends in more with the building. The brick will go all the way up, and we will also keep the keystone, the water table, and match the curvature of the columns at the bottom. This is a line drawing showing the same thing. And in the existing location, this is a storefront, which is blanked off. And the reason why we wanted to do this infill is because currently it is just a storefront that is, there have been different vinyls placed onto the storefront, which have been a breeding ground for graffiti and other things, and they start to peel off. And so we wanted to incorporate something that would be longer lasting and more in context with the rest of the building. And since we saw that example on the 13th Street side, we said why don't we just go ahead and match that. These are details here just showing how we are infilling it, and we will use 2 wides of brick and keep the water table as well. Next, we'd like to talk about the louvers. And so the louvers are a standard detail for Breitling around the world. And keeping with the industrial look of the building, we thought that adding these louvers and placing the signage on top of these louvers would add a industrial feel and not just have signage that was blaring at you. And so this is an image of the louvers as they've been done around the world. So you can see them here in Germany, in Hungary, and in the Czech Republic. And there's just simple louvers with the Breitling logo and verbiage on the front. And the Breitling and the B are internally illuminated. There are examples of other signage that has been installed in the area. So this is the Rolex store, which is diagonally, this is on the same block, just diagonally at the corner. So this is on the corner of 13th and 9th Avenue. And so this was approved by Landmarks not too long ago, within the past in 2021. Next, and so this is the image of the louvers, and you can see them on the Washington Street side. And we blew them up so that you can get a better idea as to what they would look like. And then we would also have the 3 bays on the Washington Street side. I'm sorry, the 14th Street side. And this is the details of how the louvers would be installed of the glass, and with the sizing of the logo and the signage. And last, we have the Breitling internally illuminated blade signs, one on 14th Street and one on Washington Street. And these signs we are keeping with the signage on the building and in the neighborhood. And so on the building, we have page, which is on the Washington Street side. And in the back, you can see one for vans here. And then on 14th Street side, there is Soho Works. And if you go down to 13th Street, Landmarks did approve an internally illuminated sign for All Saints. And so this is on 13th Street, just in the building. I think it's 1 or 2 buildings past our building. But our signage would keep in context with the size and the scale of the existing signage. And here are some line drawings of the signage. These are some examples of similar signs, although the color that Breitling used in the Bahamas for this sign is different. We would be sticking with the colors of that match the building. And just wanted you to see the signage and all of the louvers and the brick infill and context. And thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Chapin, please go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. Are you have any concerns about matching the brick? I know sometimes that's an issue when you have older brick on a building and you have another brick panel on the. So I was just curious as to whether you felt you could easily get a brick that will look well with the existing.
Yes, from some of the studies that we've done, we do think that we can get a brick that may not match exactly, but we will be very close. And one of the good things is that because of the awning and the depth of the awning, you actually don't see you won't see the new brick next to the existing brick.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Ginsburg.
Thank you. One quick question, and it went by quickly. The wall section with the brick did not seem to have any insulation. Is that correct?
We will be adding some insulation.
Thank you.
Because we do have to meet all of the energy code.
Great. Commissioner Chu.
Yeah, another question about the existing condition of the brick infill. Do we know when that infill happened?
We do not know when it happened. When this area did come to, when it was made into a landmark district, there was a lot more brick infills and they were removed from the building. And so that one was remaining there. But for some reason, and you can see it here, this just has a sticker infill. And when we look through Google images of the previous tenants, everyone has just placed a new sticker on there and used it in vinyl, and you see evidence of graffiti on it.
Okay. Did you, just out of curiosity, did you explore other options like glass brick or something else?
We looked at a few small things, but then once we saw, when we went around the corner and we looked, we said, this is the answer.
Right. And the detail for what's above where the horizontal reading is, is that actual members, horizontal metal members that are behind the glass?
So this.
No, sorry, over in the storefront of the glass portion of your design proposal, the lower image, the top portion.
The louvers.
Yeah, the louvers. Can you explain? I couldn't understand your detail, but are those just behind the glass?
Those are in front of the glass.
Oh, they're in front of, they're outside.
They are on the outside of the glass.
On the exterior. Oh, I see.
So this is the existing storefront here. And
Oh.
this is the louvers here and
I
then the
see.
signage.
They're in front. And is that transparent as your rendering seems to suggest you can see through it?
Yes, because there is spacing in between.
Okay,
So yes, you will be able to still see into the building.
understood. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? All right, let's move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand so we can identify you, and I'll turn it to Gregory Kalla to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I am looking through the attendees list now, and I do not see any hands raised. I will give it one more moment. And no hands are raised. So I will just note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval. And back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. All right. So I think I'd like to, and there's no testimony to respond to, but I'd like to turn to the applicant and ask if there's any final comment you'd like to make before we move into our discussion.
Just thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thanks. And commissioners, if there are no final questions, we'll go ahead and unmute so that we can move to close the hearing and begin our discussion. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So move.
Thank you. And Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed, and I will just note for the record that Commissioner Goldblum is recused and hasn't been in this presentation and will not be part of this discussion. All right, so this is an application to modify the storefronts at this building in the Gansevoort Market Historic District. And as many of you know, when this historic district was designated, much of the significance was derived from the character of change. So it was recognized that there were many different periods and different uses that resulted in significant changes over the history of the buildings in this neighborhood, starting out as with early residential buildings, moving to a commercial, then an industrial neighborhood, and then to the meatpacking period and the market period. And then at the time of designation, it was sort of coming around to a new retail and new commercial sense. And so at that time, the commission sort of embraced the idea of innovative change in this historic district, because the historic layers of change really defined the character for which the district was designated. So that just is some context to let you know sort of how to frame your comments. I think that that context will help. And so this proposal includes changing the infill at the one bay that is currently obscured with new brick, and then doing signage applied to louvers, which are in front of the transoms, and as well as signage hanging from the canopies, which we've seen many times in this district. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think this is very appropriate. I think it's in line with things we've approved before, and I think the louvers that they showed were something they've used in various places, and the signage are all reasonably modest and appropriate. I think it's fine. I can approve it as presented.
Okay, Commissioner Bland.
Agreed. I think it's a very elegant solution as well. We often see national, international brands being applied to our buildings, in a way that stretches credulity. Here it seems very natural and naturally incorporated. That louver detail, which is used all around the world, seems very at home right here in this setting. So congratulations, a very nice project. Hope you saw a lot of watches here.
Commissioner Jefferson.
I think the brick sign is a marvelous touch, really works here. The blade sign and the louvers are just really well done. I think it's appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Holford Smith.
I agree. I think it's a really a good solution to utilize that brick detail instead of using the vinyl behind the that storefront, which isn't original anyway. So I think this is a inventive solution and very appropriate.
Okay, thank you. And I do think that in some ways the brick sort of relates to the kind of industrial past here where I think bays were often infilled in sort of a utilitarian manner. Okay, Commissioner Chu,
I think it's appropriate. Yep.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Agreed. I think it's appropriate.
and Commissioner Master.
I agree as well. It's appropriate.
Okay, so I think we have a consensus here. Commissioner Chapin, would you make the motion? Oops. Diana? Diana, I think if you're speaking, you're muted. Are you able to unmute?
Yeah, I couldn't get the mute button off. Very strange. You can hear me now, right?
Yes, yes, we can.
Very weird. Okay, thank you. Okay. In the matter of a certificate of appropriateness, Borough of Manhattan, LPC 23-06232, 875 Washington Street, Gansevoort Market Historic District. A Queen Anne style market building designed by John Jordan and constructed in 1887. Application is to replace storefront infill and install signage. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Gansevoort Market Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the work will not damage or eliminate any significant historic or architectural features, that the infilling of the bay with masonry will be consistent with the evolution of this building, which featured masonry infill at various bays over time, and with the installation of masonry infill at some industrial buildings of this age when elevators were added, that the inclusion of a circular brickwork and cast stone frame and a painted signage logo at the infill bay will be in keeping with a variety of ad hoc signage which historically was added to this building, as well as other industrial buildings of this age as they were adapted for new uses. That the proposed decorative metal grills at the transoms will be evocative of mechanical louvers which are typically found in industrial buildings. That the illuminated signs attached to the grills will be small in size and limited in number. That the internally illuminated hanging sign featuring opaque panels with cutout translucent lettering will be modest in terms of illumination and in keeping with signage historically found on buildings of this type in this historic district in terms of its placement and size. That at this corner storefront, which occupies multiple bays and is cast in shadow by a large canopy, the proposed limited signage and illumination will remain a subordinate presence at the building and within the streetscape. That the building features large display windows throughout the majority of the building base. Therefore, the infilling of a single bay and the installation of the proposed louvers and signage will not diminish the overall sense of openness and transparency at the building base, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the Gansevoort Market Historic District.
Thank you. And Commissioner Master, would you second the motion?
Second.
All right. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Oh, he's recused. Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
So that's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
Right, I'm going to read in the next two items together as they will be presented together. It's public hearing items 8 and 9. LPC 23-06536 and 23-06537, both applications for a certificate of appropriateness, Borough of Manhattan, Block 712, lots 14 and 21. Both are arts and crafts style market building designed by James S. Marr and built in 1914. The application is to install a marquee and signage that will cross both properties.
Okay, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. Jonathan, you now have control of the presentation. You just need to click on your screen. And then you can advance this. Perfect. Please state your name for the record. And you may be.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jonathan Taylor with Higgins Quays-Barth Preservation Consultants. I'm joined by my colleague Cass Stackelberg, as well as Charles Thompson from Architects Sector Ruddy, and Jamie Nicholson of Rock Hill Management representing building ownership. 413 to 435 West 14th Street is on the north side of 14th Street between 9th and 10th Avenues in the Gansevoort Market Historic District. It's a market building constructed in 1914. It is on two lots, which is why it has two addresses, but it was constructed together as a building. It historically had a canopy across the entire frontage of the building, as was characteristic of such buildings in the district. The historic canopy was removed before the district's designation in 2003. In 2017, the commission approved a new canopy in one bay at the building entrance, which you can see in this existing photo, as well as the placement of bracket signs at the piers for storefront establishments. So the current proposal is to replace the existing single bay canopy with a canopy across the frontage of the building again, as well as to retain the bracket signs on the piers beneath the canopy. The full-length canopy will be in keeping with the historic condition of the building, which has lost that character-giving feature, and will reestablish the building's visual cohesion with the historic district. And in this 1931 photograph looking to the west along 14th Street, the building is on the right. The arrow points to the canopy that at that time did span the building, and of course was typical of buildings on the street and in the district as a whole. The photograph also shows, I think, the quantity and variety of signage types, both on the canopies and on the buildings, that was typical at the time. In the 1940s tax photos, canopy coverage is all across almost all of the building. And again, you can still also see the types of signs that would be on the fronts of canopies or on the building itself. By the time of designation in 2003, as I mentioned, the historic canopy was gone, although there was a series of retail, non-historic retail awnings in various bays. Just a couple of existing photos. Again, this is a view looking west. You can see the approved canopy at the building entrance, a metal and glass canopy. One of the approved bracket signs is installed at a pier there to the west of the canopy at the current time. View looking the other direction. And I just want to note a couple of details quickly. The historic anchorages for the original canopy's tiebacks are all intact at the building's piers, and those would be reused to suspend the proposed canopy. These four western bays have non-historic retractable awnings that will be removed as part of this project. On the right, you can see a photo of the existing approved canopy at the entrance. And as Charles will explain in a moment, the proposed design is a little bit different from the previously approved one. The proposed design has corrugated glass and more open beam framing that's intended to sort of slightly better evoke the historic textures of the historic canopies of the district and sit a little bit lighter on the building as it spans the entire facade. Just for your reference, this is the rendering from the approved proposal in 2017, which shows the entrance canopy as well as the full complement of bracket signs that were proposed and approved. So the current proposal, of course, shows the full-length canopy. Again, it's attached to the historic anchorages at the facade. There's signage lettering on the front of the canopy set within the channel and externally illuminated by a very small concealed linear light fixture running along the bottom of the channel, which Charles will again show in detail. The bracket signs are identical to what was previously approved, slightly moved down in position to accommodate the position of the canopy. And I just want to note that, the signage on the front of the canopy and the bracket signs sort of serve two distinct purposes and are seen under, perceived under separate circumstances. The signage on the front obviously provides visibility from across 14th Street, which is a very wide street. The bracket signs would be, seen by people walking underneath the canopy on the north side, and where you wouldn't also be seeing the signage on the front. So they have two purposes and are sort of not really perceived so much in conjunction. And with that, I'll let Charles from Center Ready walk you quickly through the details and the materials.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Charles Thompson from Center Ready Architects. So here you see what Jonathan just described, the existing elevation of the building, south elevation, with the existing retractable awnings. The next slide here shows the full length of the new canopy with the signs within the C channel in the leading edge, and then the blade signs behind. Next, this just is a plan showing the extent on the right is the proposed. And then here, the top left is a reflected ceiling plan showing the infill of it's a corrugated laminated glass. The steel is steel tubes painted black, and the leading edge, that's the bottom left detail, has a C channel that holds the pin letter mounted signage, along with a sort of concealed linear strip light. We'll show some cut sheets of those, of the light fixtures on the next slide. But additionally, there's a light fixture on the right detail close to the building. There's a light fixture that will essentially illuminate the sidewalk and the building piers. And then the above that, mounted to the canopy, is a light that only is mounted at each pier of the building. Next slide.
That's an uplight to highlight the piers.
Yep. So that uplight is the cut sheet on the bottom left here. The fixture that's mounted in between the steel tubes is in the middle, the linear luminaire, and then that linear strip that's very small, it's like a ½ inch square, is the concealed light that will sort of light the backside of the C channel for the signage in the front. This is a closer detail of that. You can see the 3/4 inch metal angle and the light there, as well as the on the right, the blade sign detail, which is a painted aluminum.
And just a few photographs, just to illustrate, as I mentioned, it's proposed to have a corrugated glass canopy. Obviously, the choice is to have glass to allow daylight to pass through the canopy, but the corrugation is intended to evoke the texture of the historic corrugated metal canopies, and these are just a few examples of those as they exist today in the district. And then a few examples of other approved canopies in the district where corrugated glass has been used to this effect, I think successfully, and also somewhat similar styles of framing of the canopy, I think, to what's proposed. And that's our presentation. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay, I don't see any questions at this time, so we'll move to public testimony, and we may have questions after that. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand so we can identify you, and I'll turn it over to Gregory to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We did not receive any signups beforehand for this item, and I'm looking through the attendee list and do not see any hands raised. So I will just note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 4 recommends approval. Thank you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. All right. If there are no other questions, I think we'll move to close the hearing and have our discussion. All right, and Commissioner Holford-Smith, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll now begin our discussion on this proposal for the canopy and signage. And why don't we go ahead and start now? Commissioner Jefferson, would you like to start this one?
Sure, sure. This is this is so amazing. The length of this thing, the proportion, it's really quite beautiful. Canopy appropriate, bracket sign appropriate, blade sign appropriate. It's just an incredible, almost surreal, but beautiful.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Holford Smith.
I agree. I think it's the canopy is appropriate. My only concern is that they're showing a bracket sign at every single pier. And I'm just wondering if they need that, like if there's going to be an individual store in each of these individual bays. I would like to see, you know, just the number of bracket signs needed for the number of retail establishments, not per bay. It's a lot. Otherwise, I think it's well done.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I agree with Anne, and otherwise it's completely appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Bland.
I also agree. It's very elegant solution here, which heralds back to the that wonderful photograph we saw. A little cleaned up now as it was from then, but nonetheless, it'll be a nice to get it back. I also agree with Ann about the repetitiveness of these blade signs. It almost looks like it could be a retail mall somewhere. So where there's a need for a storefront shop to have a retail sign, fine, but unless it's one bay per store, we won't have that many. So
Okay.
I think it's a more appropriate way of dealing with it.
Okay, great. Commissioner Goldblum.
I agree with everything Ann said, everyone else.
Okay. Commissioner Chu.
Agreed with every other comment. I might also just add that maybe the proportion of the blade sign feels like it may have worked when there wasn't the canopy there, but with the canopy there, they don't seem to speak to each other that much. But I love the canopy. I think it's great. I would also say if you work with tubes or angles and channels instead of tubes, the depths and the shadow lines there recall the channel on the front, which is always gorgeous. So.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Commissioner Master.
I agree, and I find it appropriate.
And Commissioner Ginsburg.
I agree and find it appropriate.
Okay, all right, so we'll make a motion to approve it, but with the condition that the blade signs be tenant specific and reduced in number to be relate to each tenant, and unless each bay is a different tenant. So Commissioner Jefferson, would you make that motion?
Sure. In the matter of LPC-23-06536, 413 West 14th Street, Gansevoort Market Historic District. Application is to install a marquee and signage. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Gansevoort Market Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications finding that the proposed work will not damage or obscure any significant architectural features of the building, that the installation of the new metal marquee will restore a significant architectural feature to the building that recalls the original continuous marquee documented in historic photographs, that the design details and the metal and corrugated glass materiality of the proposed marquee will recall the industrial material typical of the historic district, that there is a historic precedent for a variety of signage types at marquee and canopies in this district, including hanging, painting, and panel size. Therefore, the proposal bracket and pin-mounted letter signage will be in keeping with the tradition. that the proposed marquee and signage will be well scaled to the facade and will not detract from or overwhelm the building or streetscape. That the new marquee will reinforce the special and architectural character of the building as a market structure, and that the work will support the special architectural and historical character of the Gansevoort Market Historic District. However, I find that the proposed number of signs and their close placement to each other is excessive. Therefore, I recommend that the signs be limited to one sign per tenant or to be spaced at least 20 feet apart for limited repetition.
Thank you. And Commissioner Holford Smith, would you second that motion?
I second it.
Thank you. Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, so that's approved with that modification, but I'd also suggest that as you think about reducing the signs, you could think about Commissioner Chu's suggestion about restudying the proportions, and that may actually help as you start to think about a reduced number of signs, and also his suggestions on the details for the canopy. All right, so we'll move to the next item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is public hearing item number 10, LPC 23-04768, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 719, Lot 59, 428 West 22nd Street in the Chelsea Historic District. This is a Greek Revival style row house built in 1843. The application is to construct rooftop and rear yard additions.
Hey, Commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. Philip, you now have control of the presentation. You just need to click on your screen. And then you can advance the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse. Please state your name for the record, and you may begin.
Thank you and good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to present. My name is Philip von Dalweg from von Dalweg Architecture Office. I'm presenting 428 West 22nd Street on behalf of our client. The building is located between 9th and 10th Avenue on the south side of 22nd Street. The original one-family building was built in, as we heard, 1843 by James Fallon as part of 3 adjacent buildings, 424, 426, and the number we are discussing, 428. The current building has been vacant for a couple of years, and most of the original interior detail was removed over time. Our client, a family of 7 that lives in the neighborhood, purchased the property to raise their young children and search for some time to remain in the neighborhood and community. The application is proposing a vertical roof extension of 1 floor and rear addition of 2 floors over a basement. No underpinning or cellar work is proposed. The application was reviewed by the Department of Building and no zoning objection were received. The first slide here shows where we are located within the Chelsea Historic District. The tax map and what we were able to find from Chelsea Historic District Destination Report, more or less what I just staged, that building 424, 426, and 428 are belonging to the same time while constructed. The lower part shows on the left side the block itself in red, 428, text photo roughly from 1940, and the plaque which is mounted to our building itself. That's an overview of the coming photos where they were taken. 1, 2, 3 is from the street side, and 4 to 6 from the rear looking north. Here the photos taken from the street looking south, 4 to 4 all the way to our left, means to the east, is a 4-story basement with rear addition building. Then 4 to 6 is a 3-story over basement with attic. And then we have 4 to 8 in the center. And so these 3 buildings were built at the same time. The view from the donut looking north to the left, view 4 is the rear yard addition. It's an anomaly there, 2 stories with a basement set into the rear yard. Then 4 to 8 here in the center. And on the right side, 4 to 4 and 4 to 6, 4 to 4, good visible here, is part of the triplet from James Fallon, the 4-story basement with rear addition. That is our diagrammatic view at the donut itself with the adjacent buildings. It's highlighting a variety of building topologies, heights, extensions, and additions from rooftop extensions rendered in darker red to 4-story all the way to 1-story. So there's across from us, just looking at the, let's say, buildings across, there's a 6-story building with basement, a 4-story building with basement, plus a rear extension over 3 floors with basement, and so on and so forth. We can skip later back to that. It's, I think shows quite well the variety of the block itself. Our proposed building has a roof extension, as earlier mentioned. The roof extension is not visible from the street. It's a sloped roof. It's a little bit misleading within at this rendering or elevation here, but to imagine that the peak of the building is far set back, so it's not visible from the street. It's a 20-degree roof slope. I think earlier today it was discussed the degree of roof slope necessary to avoid parapets or rails and such. The 68 code and 2014 code states that a roof slope greater than 20 degree is exempt from a roof railing or parapet. We are taking advantage of that here in our proposal. Further, that angle of the roof allows on the south side to install solar panels, which are required in this scheme without additional mounting structures, which would hover far above the roof. So we are able to mount solar panels directly to the roof. Further, the lighter gray area within that roof, which is following the roof slope, is housing the mechanical systems, which means they're not visible within that scheme, but really recessed within the roof slope. And in general, it's a standing seam roof with a pewter gray finish. The lower part of the building has just restorative facade work within staff level approval. Here we are seeing to the left, the existing versus the proposed rear elevation. The existing building has a bulkhead, and we are proposing, as described, a one-story roof extension. And I will render that actually the other way around, from basement to top. So basement and first floor addition, the rear yard addition, aligns with the neighboring addition of 426 and 430. The second floor proposal here has a setback of 12 inches to match the height of building 424, which we showed before is built at the same time. The third floor will be kept as existing with restorative work. The roof addition is set back from the existing brick facade. The rear elevation of that roof is 9'1". The interior height there is 8 feet. And again, here, the slope roof provides a angle to mount the solar panels and avoid parapets. Throughout on that facade, we maintained the existing wall distance between window openings and maintaining the original brick piers left and right side on the lot lines. The lower part, the rear addition, is matching the restored brickwork of the third floor. Here we're showing the zoning site plan on the left side, and on the right side, the zoning diagram. On the right side, the shaded, and I'm not sure how well that renders on your screen, but the shaded area of that shows the maximum allowable height. We are staying below that, far below that. As mentioned, there are no DOB zoning objections. We're aiming for a FAR from 2.6. The zoning district allows a FAR from 3.0, so we are 0.6 FAR below that. That is our front facade rendered in with the entire 6 buildings surrounding it from looking south. Again, rear facade. Below, we are seeing which buildings were built at the same time and how we are setting our heights to align with neighboring buildings. That is a study of the donut itself. 428, our building is marked in red here. That's again looking south. You're seeing the 6+ basement building across, and I believe the larger one is, apologies for that, is 14 stories high. As well, the variety of the neighboring buildings and the amount of rear additions and roof extensions here. That is seen from the rear. Or a sightline diagram. Existing section. Proposed section. And the more in detail proposed section. Here in the front, you're seeing how we set back from the street. There is a terrace which partially keeps the roof shape to point to the front to hide the mechanical equipment and build a rail the 42-inch required rail to the front cornice. All that is set back, that it's not visible. We're extending the flues, either in terracotta or steel flues. And then the rear, you see the setback there, and the 2+ basement additions in the rear yard. We are trying to keep most of, or actually we're keeping all interior floor heights, and we are trying to keep as far as possible the existing stair opening in the rear to guide the staircase in a continuous way to the proposed roof extension. That is our roof mock-up. Here to point out on the 2 left images or photos, the extension is not visible. The flue extension will be visible. That's the only part. And you're seeing there the slope, the proposed slope. That's the peak of the roof, upper left. Apologies, lower left peak, and then the view to the rear on the bottom right. That is again the sight line from the street. Proposed materials from left to lower right, left, upper left, standing seam, metal roof, interlocked shingles. That is the roof material there would be a pewter gray with a matte finish. Then the idea of the solar panels directly mount to the standing seam, which lets us use a certain clip there. Cornice in rail color, and then the rear facade, which we want to restore, which means to remove paint, and then the new brick to match existing brick. And our windows, we are aiming for a low energy building where we proposing in the front a double pane wood windows to match the current ones, and in the rear a triple pane wood aluminum clad window. Here are the existing floor plans, proposed floor plans. I believe that's our presentation. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have any questions, commissioners? All right, no, I don't see any questions just yet. So we'll move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand so we can identify you, and I'll turn it to Gregory to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received a couple of signups beforehand, so we'll be hearing from those people first. The first sign-up was David Holoka from Save Chelsea. So I will be promoting you to panelist now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. Hello, Dave Holoka. Are you with us?
Hello. Yes. Welcome, new commissioners. I am Dave Holoka, a board member of Save Chelsea, speaking on the group's behalf. Aside from this house's street facade, the only part of its exterior to be preserved would be its top floor rear wall. The rear addition would be an addition on a previous addition. We can only support replacing the existing rear addition with a new one extending no more than 8 feet from the main rear facade at the basement and parlor floor levels only. This would follow the precedent of historic T-porch additions. We do not support the rooftop addition or alteration of the rear facade or its window openings at the second and third floor. The existing 35 square foot house can already serve a large family. Part of the proposal's bulk owes to double height interior space. This sadly familiar proposal follows a formula the commission has itself created with its own policy. The new roofline literally follows the required line of sight diagram, as if drafted by LPC. Everyone now knows that only a row house's front facade and a top floor band-aid of its rear facade need to be saved. Because interiors can be gutted at will, this invites virtual facadism and excessive enlargement in vicious cycle. Row houses containing affordable apartments often give way to extravagant single-family homes in the process. Their LPC sanctioned potential as development sites drives the price of row houses out of reach of those who might appreciate them for what they are and truly preserve them. These houses would be highly sought after at high prices, even if they could not be effectively treated as teardowns, but the commission's policy encourages their destruction. Historic fabric and embodied energy alike are squandered. The houses suffer both individually and collectively. The donut hole of open space at the center of the block is inexorably eroded by rearward extensions, and its sky exposure and natural light are reduced by rooftop additions. The open rear yard environment is the character-defining native context to the row houses. Like the full exterior of the houses, it is under the commission's purview and should be protected. Loss of backyard space reduces stormwater absorption critical to resilience. It increases urban heat island effect and limits trees, which can absorb carbon dioxide. It reduces the value and desirability of unenlarged neighboring houses, inspiring arms race-like competition. The commission will say that neither of these impacts nor affordable housing are its concern. It would be one thing if all this public sacrifice somehow saw a return in preservation, but basic preservation principles are being dismissed as well. It's time for the commission to revisit its row house policies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that testimony. Next, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. So Lucy Levine, I'll be promoting you to panelist right now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this rear yard addition to be too high by a story. We believe that the second and third floor facade plane should be maintained as is. We also find the proportion of the masonry to glass in the garden and parlor floor extensions to be somewhat off and in need of further study. Additionally, some consideration could be given to relating the pattern of mullions and muntins between the upper and lower portions of this house. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I am looking through the list of attendees and do not see any other hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 4 recommends denial unless the following changes are made. 1, that the rear yard extension is limited to the parlor floor and basement. The depth of the extension is limited to match that of the neighboring buildings. The materials for the rear addition being made to match the existing materials, namely brick, not stucco, and that the step-down windows on the rear upper floors be made 6/6 and are otherwise maintained in the same configuration. And I will now turn it over to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd like to turn back to the applicant and ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
Thank you. I think the first comments, both are very appreciated. I think the first comment, LPC, is probably the one who has to respond to it directly, since that was less about the project, but rather a general statement. I just want to clarify that the rear is not a T-porch. That was, I think, clarified with Landmark prior, and that I think some of the CB comments are coming from the community board meeting where we made already changes to the material, the window and the glass versus brick proportion.
Okay. I mean, I think the heart of the first set of comments was the cumulative effect of the addition. So if you want to address that, you can do so.
Sure, yeah. What we changed since the community board meeting, and I think we can, yeah, that's a good slide to talk about that. Is that we are matching the height of the neighboring existing addition with the first basement and first floor, and then following the 424 building, where we also seeing a addition on the second floor. The second floor is stepping back by 12 inches to make that point. And then we are keeping the third floor facade with the step down windows, all piers, following the same of the existing or the original building, which means we are taking reference from there. And I think this speaks for itself that it actually falls in place here.
Okay. All right, commissioners, do we have any final questions? All right, so I think we'll move to our discussion then. You can all either accept my request to unmute or just go ahead and unmute. And Commissioner Goldblum, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion on this proposal for rooftop and rear yard additions. And we'll go ahead and start. Commissioner Holford Smith, would you like to start this one?
Sure. So I agree with comments of the testimony that the cumulative additions to this building overwhelm this small townhouse. I think that the rear addition needs to be reduced by one floor so that the top two floors maintain the original plane of the building. I know we often allow such large expanses of glass, but I think that it would be beneficial for the project if the architect could look at the proportions of those windows that seem very, very large and undivided, in contrast with the smaller windows above. The rooftop addition, I think, comes much too close to the rear of the existing building and should be pulled back. And I think we need to get to the bottom of what the minimum angle is for not having to have a railing. Because I think we're hearing different statistics on that. But I looked at the height of this new addition, and it's at the peak, it's 14 feet high, which I think could be reduced by a few feet. So if they bring the back plane in and bring the peak down. And those are my comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum.
I agree 100% with Ann. I had a feeling this slope looks a lot closer to what we saw for that project in Brooklyn a few years ago than the one this morning did. It had a definitive steepness to it that we were grappling with there. I was like, why the hell is this thing so tall? And their answer was, what can I do? That's the code. So, and it's not necessarily that I think we're hearing two things. I think that one set of architects looked at the FDNY regs and one set's looking at the zoning or the code regs, building code. So I think it's, if the staff can wrap their heads around this, it'll serve the public better and help keep architects from making dumb mistakes. But yeah, I agree. Push back the top. I think that the monster panes of glass are probably inappropriate, like Ann said.
Okay. Commissioner Bland.
Well, to the new commissioners, you'll find it's very helpful when Ann and Michael go first, because they don't leave you much else to say. At least in my case, that's been true, and it's true right now. I think I agree with everything that has been said, so I don't need to repeat it. But it's too tall by one story in the back, and the glass is too large and undifferentiated. And I just want to end by saying that I thought David Holoka's soliloquy, and maybe that's kind of what it was in a general way, bears thinking about.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chapin?
Yes, I also agree with Ann's comments completely. And, this is a block, it has a few 3-story additions, but mostly it's 1 or 2. And in this case, for this size building, I think that all of the comments she made are correct. So I agree.
Okay, great. Commissioner Jefferson? Just make sure you're unmuted. Oh, maybe he stepped away. All right, let's move around. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree with the comments. I just want to note that the solar panels and the highly insulated glazing are noted and appreciated.
Great, thanks. Commissioner Chu?
Agreed on all points. Nothing further to add.
And Commissioner Master?
I agree with everything that's been said before.
Okay. All right, so I think what we can do is make a motion to approve it with eliminating 1 floor at the rear addition, restudying the articulation of the double height glazing, and setting back the rooftop addition more and lowering the pitch of the roof to the extent possible. So Commissioner Hopel-Smith, would you make that motion?
Yes.
Sarah, may I?
Yes.
Before it's
Yes.
made, I don't remember, but it may be necessary to push the lower 2 floors back to alignment with their neighbors. I've forgotten if I think it might be out of alignment, but it should, in my judgment, it should be in alignment.
It is out of alignment, but there are others that are deeper. So I think we didn't drill into that in any of the comments. So do others feel that way as well? Or in this case, there's enough variety of depth?
Do you know how much deeper it is?
Is there a plan? Just go back to the site plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll think if we can have the staff answer because the hearing is closed.
Yeah.
I think the properties to either side are not matching one another, but I do believe this is out a few more feet. I can try to zoom in and take a close.
Yeah.
There
were little
LPC
indicators on
109
the side
has it.
there.
There's a site plan that shows its context. Might help.
109, LPC 109. It doesn't have a dimension, but
There. It seems like it's like a foot off or just less.
I would estimate it's 3 to 5 feet range.
Really?
Yeah, that would be it.
Right, so it's because the roof is less than 3 feet and it's a smaller
Yeah.
setback.
Part of the reason to do it as well is that this was a row of 3. I mean, it was built,
Right.
it was a row of 3.
And the others are different buildings. Okay.
I agree. I'm with Fred.
Okay.
Agree.
All right, so we'll add that. Great, thank you.
all right. In the matter of LPC 23-04768, 428 West 22nd Street, Chelsea Historic District, a Greek Revival style row house built in 1843. The application is to construct rooftop and rear yard additions. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Chelsea Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural or historic features, that the proposed rooftop and rear yard additions will not be visible from any public thoroughfare, that while the chimney flue extensions will be visible over the primary facade, they will be in keeping with other visible flues, both historic and altered, found within this historic district. that the design and materiality of the rooftop addition, featuring gray standing seam metal cladding and metal window and door assemblies, will help to differentiate the addition from the building and will be consistent with materials found at rooftop additions in this historic district. That the rooftop addition will be set back from the front and rear facades, helping to maintain a sense of the building's original massing. That the design and materiality of the rear yard addition, featuring red brick and dark finished metal window and door assemblies, will be in keeping with the material palette and residential scale of the building. That the solid to void ratio of the rear yard addition will be compatible with the residential character of the building. That the proposed rear yard addition will not significantly alter the scale of the building nor diminish its relationship to the adjacent buildings. That the proposed rear yard addition will not rise to the full height of the building, and that the upper 2 floors of the historic rear facade will be retained. That the work will not further diminish the central green space in terms of projection into the rear yard, and will maintain the scale and character of the building as an individual row house. That the presence of both rooftop and rear yard additions, if properly scaled and sited, will not overwhelm the building. That the modest adjustment to one masonry opening at the top floor of the rear facade will harmonize with other window openings at this facade and the adjacent buildings. And that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the Chelsea Historic District. However, I find that the rear addition projects further into the rear yard than those of the adjacent houses and includes a step profile which encroaches further at the first 2 floors. That the rear facade of the proposed rooftop addition lies close to the rear parapet, thereby diminishing the sense of the original building's volume, and that the cumulative increase in massing overwhelms the adjacent houses. Therefore, I recommend that the rear addition be set back to align with the adjacent houses with no setbacks, and the reduction of 1 floor of the rear addition, maintaining the top 2 floors of the original house, and that the rooftop addition be set back at least 3 feet from the plane of the rear facade and reduced in height if code allowed per the slope of the roof.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion?
Second.
Hey, Sarah,
Yes.
do we need to specify the setback, the rear yard addition setback to align with the addition that is deepest on either side?
Sure.
Just so it's clear, okay. Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, thank you. Please continue to work with the staff on those adjustments, and we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 11, LPC 23-05900, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1384, lot 7502, 828 Madison Avenue in the Upper East Side Historic District. This is a neo-Renaissance style hotel building designed by George F. Pelham, built in 1925 to 26. The application is to modify a masonry opening, install new infill, and replace windows.
Okay, Commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. The staff will be taking you through the presentation.
Okay, and just before we get started, I'll note for the record that Vice Chair Bland is recused on this item and has left the meeting.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Michelle Crarin, Preservation Staff. This application is for work at 828 Madison Avenue. The building encompasses an entire block front on Madison Avenue between East 69th and East 70th Streets in the Upper East Side Historic District. These slides show some historic photos of the building. In the center and the right 1940s tax photos, you can see one of the locations of work and opening to be modified. There are 2 components to the proposed scope of work. The first component is that the applicant is proposing to replace the remaining double hung windows at the 2nd floor. Secondly, they are proposing to enlarge the egress opening at the East 70th Street facade to accommodate an additional egress door for the 2nd floor space. The existing door currently serves upper floors. As you may have noted from the historic photos, the window at the second floor corners of the building were combined and enlarged recently, and new bronze-clad display windows were installed, which was approved by the Commission in 2018. The existing double-hung windows at the second and third floors are modern aluminum replacement windows and were installed after the designation of the historic district. The applicant is proposing to replace those remaining windows with new windows, which will have a finish that will closely replicate the finish of the previously approved display windows, as well as existing and proposed storefront infill at the first floor. The second aspect of the work involves the enlargement of this opening on the East 70th Street facade. The applicants propose to remove an existing modern window, shown here, as well as some limestone and granite, in order to enlarge the opening and install a new egress door. The existing granite surround will be carefully removed and reinstalled to the greatest extent feasible, with new matching granite used as infill or replacement as necessary. A new metal mullion and egress door will be installed, closely matching the existing door. And here you can see a rendering of the proposed work. The applicants are here and can explain their proposal in more detail and answer your questions.
Thank you. The applicants like to say anything at this point?
This is hello, commissioners. This is Basil Walter, architect for the project. And no, I think Michelle has explained the gist of it very well.
Okay, thank you. And commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay, we have Commissioner Ginsburg. Please go ahead.
Whoops, got to unmute. Quick question. Are the new windows going to be meeting the energy code or exceeding it?
The answer is yes, they will. Yeah, I could go on, but the answer is yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, other questions? Okay, let's move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand so we can identify you, and I'll turn it to Gregory Kalla to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received one sign up in advance for this item. So we'll be hearing first from Nuha Ansari from Friends of Upper East Side. So Nuha Ansari, I will be promoting you to panelist right now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Chair Carroll and honourable commissioners. My name is Nuha Ansari and I am speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts. Friends Preservation Committee finds the proposal to replace 21 white double-hung windows with new double-hung windows within the existing masonry openings to be appropriate. The materials would match the existing bronze display windows on the second floor and thus represent an improvement to the facade. Our Preservation Committee also does not object to the proposed enlargement of the existing entrance on the building's north elevation by replacing the existing small window with a new service door and transom, thereby creating an 11-foot 4-inch wide entrance within an expanded granite frame. We do, however, wish that the applicant had taken the opportunity to consider a bronze finish for the new doors on 70th Street rather than black painted metal. We feel this would have been more in keeping both with the 69th Street entrance as well as the bronze window frames on the first and second floors. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And I believe that is all that we have for testimony, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends denial. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'd like to turn back to the applicant. Basil, would you like to respond to any of the comments?
Yes, there's some subsequent pages that that really we used in doing our research about the appropriate finish, and I completely understand the Friends of Upper East Side position. This slide shows the addition of a doorway on 69th Street, which is what Nuha was referring to, and the original door to the hotel has the large frame and the photograph on the bottom right, and then when the building was converted to a condominium, this additional bronze door was added to match, and the finish there was matching the bronze finish of the original doors to the hotel. On the upper right, you see what that original masonry looked like in that prior to the addition of that door. However, going over to the 70th Street, all of the research that we were able to uncover indicates that the original door, service door on 70th Street was in fact a black door originally, and therefore we were proposing to be in keeping with the original character of that door by keeping the new door black. So.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson, please go ahead. Just if you're speaking, just remember to unmute.
Okay. I said I didn't want to be picky, but the question I have is, if you go to the original facade where the an image on the left-hand side, if you increase that, the question I have is the pier becomes smaller than the other piers. You see on the right-hand side, the pier on the left is a certain proportion, and when you added the door, the pier got smaller. It seems to have gotten as small as the corner. Is there any way that the piers could remain consistent, or is that just being picky?
The issue that we have is the required egress for the width of that door, and we did certainly consider that. And I suppose our logic in it is that we were matching we were able to, with the required minimum width of the door, match the pier on the far right side rather than the other piers. But I could see it both ways. Although unfortunately we can't, because we simply can't get the width of the doorway that
Got
we
it.
need.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, any other final questions? All right, I think we can move to our discussions. So I'm sending you all requests to unmute. All right, and Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed, and we'll begin our discussion on this application to modify masonry openings, install new windows and a door. So Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start this one?
I don't see anything about this that strikes me as inappropriate. I think it's a modest incursion into the secondary facade and the service area of the secondary facade of this building. I think that Commissioner Jefferson's suggestion about the pier is a good one, however, and I think the applicant can work with staff. The only way they'd be able to do that, I think, would be to reduce the size of the existing 5-foot doors and reposition that wall on the inside. If that is possible, it would be a better result, but I think it's appropriate as is.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bland. Oh, excuse me, he's recused on this item. Right, Commissioner Jefferson.
Totally appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Holford Smith.
I agree, it's appropriate.
Commissioner Chapin.
Appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Chu.
Appropriate.
And Commissioner Ginsburg.
Appropriate.
And Commissioner Master.
Appropriate.
Okay, so I think we can approve this, and perhaps, Michael, you could do a motion to approve it and then also suggest they explore the feasibility of adjusting the width.
You bet. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, regarding 828 Madison Avenue in the Upper East Side Historic District, the application is to modify a masonry opening and install new infill and replace windows. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Upper East Side Historic District, and I recommend approval. Finding that the window to be removed is not a special window, and only a limited amount of plain masonry will be removed to accommodate the enlarged opening. That the existing granite at the egress door will be salvaged and reinstalled in the enlarged opening. That the new egress door and mullion and new portions of the granite surround will match the existing features in terms of material, details, and finish. That the windows to be replaced at the second floor are modern windows, therefore the removal will not result in the loss of historic fabric. That the proposed windows will match the existing display windows at the first floor in terms of featuring a light bronze finish, helping to unify the first two floors of the building, which both feature commercial use. And that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the Upper East Side Historic District, and the applicant will work with staff to examine the possibility of narrowing the overall opening of the service doors to allow for the rusticated pier to equal those to its left, which I think is south.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, that's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 12, LPC 23-04980. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1407, lot 8, 117 East 72nd Street in the Upper East Side Historic District Extension. This is a colonial revival style apartment building designed by Kenneth M. Murchison and built in 1927 to 28. And the application is to enlarge a penthouse.
Okay, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. The staff will be taking you through the presentation. Marie, you now have control. Please click on your screen.
Abby, I think this is the wrong presentation. Mine is 117.
You are correct. I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Marie Garino, Preservation Staff. The item before you is for 117 East 72nd Street in the Upper East Side Historic District Extension. The building is located on the north side of the street between Park and Lexington Avenues, and the application is to enlarge a penthouse addition. So here are some existing and historic condition photographs of the building. Note that historically, there was a masonry enclosure around the water tower, which was visible over the row houses on East 73rd Street. And here's a site plan showing the existing structure, existing penthouse outlined with a dotted red line, and the proposed addition is here in solid red. And here are existing and proposed axons that show the proposed alterations outlined in red, consisting of horizontally and vertically enlarging the penthouse for a new interior egress stair, as well as constructing an exterior egress stair. And here's an existing condition photo and a proposed rendering showing the massing and materiality of the addition. It will be clad in a red brick to match the existing penthouse structure, and the new exterior egress stair will be made of metal and will have a dark painted finish. And here's another existing condition photo and proposed rendering from a different vantage point. And here we have our existing and proposed floor plans. And here is a sightline section drawing showing that there is no visibility of the proposed addition from East 72nd Street, but there is some visibility from East 73rd Street. And a mock-up was constructed of all of the rooftop accretions, and here are some photos of that mock-up taken from the roof. And here are photos taken from the street confirming that there's no visibility over the primary facade on East 72nd Street, but that there is some visibility over the rear facade from East 73rd Street. And here are some zoomed in photos of the mock-up. And the applicants are here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Do we have any questions for the applicant? All right, let's see if we have public testimony. If you'd like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you, and I'll turn it to Gregory Kala to take us through the testimony.
Okay, thank you, Chair Carroll. We received one sign up in advance for this item, that being Nuha Ansari from Friends of Upper East Side. So Nuha Ansari, I'll be promoting you to panelist right now. And if you could please state your name for the record and unmute your line, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello again, Chair Carroll, Honourable Commissioners. My name is Nuha Ansari and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts. Friends Preservation Committee understands the need for the proposed modifications to meet code requirements for the parapet and exterior egress stair, and appreciates the modest nature of the interventions proposed to the 15th floor and penthouse level at 117th East 72nd Street. We note that the modifications would only be minimally visible from the street level and neighboring buildings, and that the materials used in the new construction will match the existing materials. The addition on the east elevation will match the existing brick. The new windows will be steel to match the existing windows, and the exterior egress stair will be black painted metal to match the existing fire escapes on the north elevation. Similarly, we feel that the proposed non-reflective glass rail around the parapet would be an unobtrusive and subtle solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any other hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends approval. Thank you, Chair Carroll.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, so the testimony is supportive. I don't know if the applicants do want to say a final statement before we move to our discussion.
No, but we are here if there are any questions, and we thank you all. I know it's been a long day.
Okay, thank you. All right, commissioners, any final questions on this one? All right, we're going to move to our discussion then. So Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
I so move to close the hearing.
Thank you. Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. This is really a modest addition that is extending to the side of the existing penthouse and adding an egress stair at the back. And this is something that is not visible in connection with the front facade, but is obliquely visible from 73rd Street and Lexington Avenue in the context of the existing addition and other accretions. So we'll start our discussion. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start this one?
Okay, I think it's quite appropriate. I agree that it's a modest addition. It's minimally visible and, you know, provide some necessary access stairs. So I think it's fine. I think it's appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
Agreed.
Commissioner Jefferson?
I think it's appropriate, but I was wondering about this fire stair. I mean, I recall that, shouldn't it have a roof on it or something? I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I find it appropriate. There's some technical issue that I'm not sure of, but
okay.
I find it appropriate.
Well, if the staff in working with the applicant finds that there are requirements that lead to a roof that wasn't shown today, we'll consider that visibility and bring it back to you. Commissioner Holford Smith?
I find it appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Bland?
That may be a an issue that you have to bring back to us, as far as I remember the code from a while ago. In any event, if it's not, this is certainly appropriate. But I think an enclosure would also probably be appropriate, but maybe we have to see it.
Okay. Commissioner Chu
Appropriate.
and Commissioner Ginsburg
Appropriate.
and Commissioner Master.
Appropriate.
Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and make a motion to approve it. Commissioner Chapin, would you make that motion?
Yes, hold on a second. Okay. In the matter of a certificate of appropriateness, Borough of Manhattan, LPC 2304980, 117 East 72nd Street, Upper East Side Historic District Extension. A colonial revival style apartment building designed by Kenneth M. Murchison and built in 1927 to 1928. Application is to enlarge a penthouse. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Upper East Side Historic District Extension. I recommend approval, finding that enlarging the existing penthouse will not damage or destroy any significant architectural features, that the modest size of the proposed enlargement will not overwhelm the scale of the building, that the red brick cladding of the proposed enlargement will match the material of the existing penthouse and will blend unobtrusively with the roofscape, that the enlargement will not be visible over the front facade, that while portions of the proposed enlargement and new fire escape stair will be visible from the east on East 73rd Street and Lexington Avenue, it will be seen in the context of the existing penthouse and other rooftop accretions, and therefore will recede from view, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the historic district.
Thank you. And Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 9 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you. We'll now move to our next.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now move to our next and final item.
Okay, the last item is public hearing item number 13, LPC 23-07040. Application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1398, lot 5, 101 East 63rd Street in the Upper East Side Historic District. This is a modern style residence and garage designed by Paul Rudolph and built in 1966. The application is to modify the entrance.
Hey, Commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. Steve, if you could unmute yourself, I will give you control of the presentation. Great. Can you click on your screen, please? And then you can advance the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Carroll, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen from the public joining today. I'm Steve Blatz, architect, and also joining me today is Emma O'Neill and Belle Wu of Studio Sofield, as well as Valerie Campbell from Kramer Levin. Studio Sofield and I are currently developing renovations to this single family with private residence at 101 East 63rd Street. It's located on between Park Avenue and Lexington Avenue. This building was initially built as a stable in 1881 and was later redesigned and altered by Paul Rudolph in 1966 as a residence for Alexander Hirsch, and was later known as the Halston House when the designer purchased it in 1974. Halston sold the house in 1990, and the home underwent several interior modifications since that time. In recent years, the building has been very carefully restored on both the exterior and the interior. And the paint was scraped from the existing building. It was completely repainted. There was historical color matching. The restoration was also a very took a very painstaking replacement of the glass. There's bronze glass panels throughout the facade. Many of them were cracked and they needed to be thoroughly replaced. Also included sorry. You can see also included at that time was a thorough restoration of the interior of the home. I know that the interior is not the interior suffered a fair amount of changes from previous owners, and although the interior is not covered by regulated by LPC, it should be noted that the current owner restored everything back to the original Rudolph designs. He was very adamant that things match the original. And it was a very faithful restoration, and he has proven to be a very good custodian to the home. Moving to the specific modifications that we're presenting today, I'd like to orient you to these images here. On the left is the facade as it's existing. You can see that the property line or rather that the garage is set back from the property line by approximately 3.5 feet. And then the entrance to the front door is set back an additional 3.5 feet. In our proposal today, we're looking to modify and bring this front door forward by exactly 19 inches. Due to the nature of the inset entry door, the entrance area has become an area that collects windblown trash. It's also been an area where loiterers have frequently sheltered themselves for smoking, public urination, and sometimes even sleeping, which on several occasions has made it impossible for the owner to securely exit or enter his home. We've previously received permission from LPC at staff level to change the door handle and to modify the entry door to swing in rather than swing out, which will at least allow the owner to open the door when there are obstructions at the entry. The specific change that we're requesting today, as I said, is to shift the entry door 19 inches forward towards the street to address this condition that has become a security issue for the owner. Currently, right here, you see that the entry door is 4 feet back from the plane of the garage. In our proposal, it would be 2.5 inches back. We've carefully studied the facade in order to address these changes in a sensitive manner that reflects Rudolph's design to intention to have a recessed entry. I'd also like to make clear that the changes that we're proposing do not change anything on any of the upper floors. Everything remains the same. In this elevation, you can see that from this vantage point, everything does look the same. Reads identically. On the left, we have the 4-foot recess, and on the right here, we have 2.5 recess. There is a soffit here that has 3 light fixtures, and they're approximately 7 inches in diameter. And with our change by shifting this door forward, the soffit area has been reduced in size, but we are still replacing it with 3 round downlights that would be 4 inches in diameter. The door handle that was existing was previously approved by Landmark staff for this current door handle that is in in place now. And the door currently opens outward, which makes it, as I said, difficult for the owner to open if this space is occupied. So we have previously received permission to open the door inwards. In addition, there are two other small modifications that we're requesting. I'm going to show you this in plan. So in plan, I'll go back to what we were looking at before. So we've got the 4 feet, which is the existing distance that the door is set back from the garage. And in our proposal, it would be 2'5". Here you see the soffit with 3 downlights, and this would be the new soffit with the new downlights. By pulling this forward, it allows sufficient space for this oversized 4-foot door. It allows space within the vestibule for someone to actually open the door. If the door were to swing in the existing condition, it would be very difficult because they would be smashed up against the vestibule door. The other 2 additions that we're looking to change are to relocate the intercom. Currently, it's located right here, and we would like to relocate it to the west wall so that it's a little bit closer to the entrance. And in addition, below that intercom, we would like this glass panel to be operable so that we could have a hose bib located inside of the garage. Currently, there is no water access at the front of the house, so there's no way to keep the front clean and maintain it. And as this is a protected structure, we did not want to put a hose bib on the facade, so we're proposing to have it behind a basically invisible door. It should be noted that this design has been modified from what we presented to Community Board on February 13th. At that presentation, the Community Board raised some concerns to the design that we presented. We listened, we heard their comments, we worked with LPC staff, and we've attempted to address those concerns while still trying to address the challenges that the design poses. We made the following revisions based on the feedback from these conversations. First, we reduced the distance that we were proposing to shift it back. Initially, we were proposing to shift it back further. We have reduced it now so that it's only a 2-foot, only a 19-inch shift from its existing condition. We've also added these 3 downlights when we presented the Community Board. Since our soffit dimension was reduced, we didn't have space for the lights, but we have increased it so that we could maintain the character that the original house has with the 3 downlights. And then the third change is that we had previously received permission to have a split door that matched the vestibule door right here, so that there would be sufficient space to open the door inside to the vestibule. But we have now decided to maintain the existing door, existing 4-foot door, and just switch the swing. We have here, these are just views looking in the east direction. Again, you can see that the amount of glass that has changed and the size of the soffit that has gone from 2'5" to 11 inches. There is some precedent for this type of a change within this district. A townhouse at 32 East 74th Street. It's a townhouse designed by William Lescaz, and they had requested to move their front door forward in a similar fashion, and that was approved to move this facade, move the entry 2.5 feet forward. And then also in the neighborhood is the Modulator building, which was designed and owned by Rudolph. It was initially designed and built in 1988, and between 1988 and 1992. It was owned by Rudolph and his longtime partner, Ernst Wagner. It was a mixed-use building. built as 4 stories with a showroom on the ground floor, Rudolph's office on the 2nd floor, and then a duplex residence on the upper 2 floors for Wagner. After Rudolph's death, an additional 2 floors were added. The reason that we're showing this, the reason we're showing this today is that you can see that there is actually a very deep entry to this building as well, similar to 101 East 63rd Street. And I think that, as this was owned by Rudolph, he seemed to understand that there were the same sorts of security issues and concerns at that time that our client is facing today. And so a gate was designed and installed on this building. Now we're not proposing that we install a gate on this build on 101 East 63rd. We feel that it would detract from the historic facade too much, and further, we don't really know how Rudolph would have designed something for there. So we are just looking to address these issues with this small change of shifting the door by 19 inches, and we believe that these modifications will increase the owner's ability to maintain a clean and safe entry while also maintaining Paul Rudolph's original design intent. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, I don't see any questions at this time. So, oh yes, Commissioner Jefferson, please go ahead.
I understand the issue and your problem, but what I don't understand is if 19 inches is not going to stop homeless from sleeping there, it's not going to stop debris from coming in there. Why the effort?
Well, we do feel that it will reduce the amount of we feel that it will reduce the
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Valerie Campbell from Kramer Levin. If I could sort of interject a little bit, it is part of sort of an overall plan that does allow us to keep the original door, but allow it to swing in, which we could not do when we had the original recess. And it also allows us to add the hose. And I do think that the difference between 4 feet and 2.5 feet, the 4 feet is, provides a more sort of secluded space that, people were unfortunately taking advantage of.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? All right, let's move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand so we can identify you. And as always, we'll start with anyone who signed up in advance and then get to all others. But please, whether you signed up or not, please raise your hand so we can find you in the attendee list. And I'll turn it over to Gregory Kala to take us through the testimony.
Oh, it's me, Sarah.
Oh, sorry, Sonia.
I had to step out. But we do have a number of folks signed up. And so the first person testifying will be Sean Corsandi. And Sean will be promoting you to panelist now. And if you can please unmute your line and state your name, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Sean Corsandi for the Paul Rudolph Foundation, established in 2002 to further the knowledge, understanding, and preservation of the work of the late modernist architect and educator, Paul Rudolph. Though primarily known in the 60s for his concrete structures and visionary urban plans, Rudolph excelled at smaller scale interventions like his High Street residence in New Haven, his 58th Street office, and later townhouses in the Village and East Side. In each, he adapted his spatial concepts to particular site conditions, retaining varying degrees of the original structure. His transformation here was his first and arguably most elegant structure built in our city. Originally an 1881 carriage house, the existing curb cut and parking potential of the property attracted Alexander Hirsch and his partner Lewis Turner to commission Rudolph's conversion into a spacious residence. After completion in '67, the project was featured in Record and House and Garden, immortalized by photographs by Ezra Stoller. Rudolph described it as, quote, a world of its own, inward-looking and secretive. It is created in a relatively small volume of space in the middle of New York City. Varying intensities of light are juxtaposed and related to structures within structures. Simple materials, plaster, paint are used, but the feeling is of great luxuriance came of the space. One of the exposed facade reveals in the interior arrangement of volumes by offsetting each floor and room and plan and section. End quote. The design can be understood as both a critique of New York City townhouses and commentary on urbanism. His spatial concept was Mies plan turned on edge, in reference to Mies's canonical 29 German National Pavilion. For both architects, space is defined as a series of offset parallel planes directing a carefully orchestrated sequence of movement from public to private. On 63rd, Rudolph expresses the interior organization on the street facade with a composition of planes and opaque and transparent glass set within steel framework. Within that frame, he inverts classical townhouse arrangement with a projecting attic and a recessed base. Typical of his work is the subtle differentiation of projecting and receding spatial planes. Corresponding to the offsets in section, these planes are set back increasing distances from top to bottom and below the projecting attic story and from left to right, with the entry door as the deepest setback. The recessed entry was one of the few elements retained from an earlier unrealized scheme, suggesting Rudolph felt strongly about it. It's the beginning of an elaborate sequence of spaces through dark and light, compressed and expansive, designed to separate the user psychologically from the public life of the street. Urbanistically, 101 can also be understood as a critique of Park Avenue. In writings, he objected to the monotony of glass curtain walls and spatial confusion caused by numerous plazas, quote, producing not a break in the wall lining Park Avenue, but merely a widening of the road. He believed the relationship of a project to its neighboring buildings on a city block must be precise and deliberate. At 63rd Street, it's the recession of planes back from the lot line that achieved this end. Like Seagram, it's a moment of relief from its neighbors. Today, the facade appears as it did in Stoller's 69 photographs. Recessed entry door completely in shadow. In conclusion, the proposed modifications destroy the intention of the garage and relocate the entry door and side light, setting it forward from its current location to align with the plane of the second floor dressing room and third floor guest room. The entry door would no longer read as a recessed base, but rather a continuation of upper levels. In our view, these modifications would significantly alter the appearance of the street facade, contrary to his intent. The current interior entry conditions are a modification of Rudolph's original plan. We urge the applicant to review Rudolph's original design for a solid, time-tested solution to meet their present needs, and we urge the Landmarks Preservation Commission to deny this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Amanda Davis, and I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you can please unmute your line and state your name, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, good late afternoon, Chair Carroll and Commissioners. My name is Amanda Davis. I'll be speaking on behalf of the New York City LGBT Historic Sites Project. The project has concerns over the proposed modification to the entrance of 101 East 63rd Street, which we include on our website for its multiple layers of significance to LGBTQ history. First, of course, to renowned architect Paul Rudolph. Second, Alexander Hirsch, who lived here with his partner, Lewis Turner, and together they commissioned Rudolph. And third, longtime resident Halston, America's first superstar fashion designer. Rudolph's work here is significant as one of only 3 residences that he designed in Manhattan. We agree with the Paul Rudolph Foundation that the proposed change will remove Rudolph's original design intention to recess and obscure the residential entrance from the street. This is a character-defining feature of many of Rudolph's designs that should be preserved as part of his overall design concept for 101 East 63rd Street. There are also only a handful of modernist-style houses in New York City that are designated individual landmarks. The East 63rd Street house would undoubtedly be eligible for individual landmark status as an important work of architecture by a master architect and a rare example of Rudolph's residential designs in New York City. We ask that the Commission reject the proposed change so that the design intentions of one of America's foremost 20th century architects remain as he envisioned it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be John Arbuckle from Docomomo, and I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you can please unmute your line and state your name, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. John Arbuckle, are you able to unmute your line?
Mute.
There we go.
There you go. You bailed me out there. Thank you. All right, very good. You can't see me. Well, that's okay. Can you hear me? Good.
Yes, we can.
All right. So good afternoon. I'm John Arbuckle, president of Docomomo US New York Tri-State, a local chapter of an international organization working in over 70 countries around the world. Our mission is to increase public awareness and appreciation of modern architecture, landscapes, and urban design, to identify and document local examples, and to advocate for the protection of those determined most significant. Since 1996, our chapter has been advancing this mission in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Designed by Paul Rudolph for Alexander Hirsch, and famously later owned by the fashion designer Halston, the important townhouse at 101 East 63rd Street, completed in 1967, is actually an extensive renovation to a stable built in 1881, none of which remains visible. In New York 1960, Robert A. M. Stern and his co-authors praised it as Rudolph's first building in New York and one of his most successful designs. Paul Rudolph was among the leading American architects and most influential architectural educators of his generation. Along with the Paul Rudolph Townhouse at 23 Beekman Place, an individually designated New York City landmark, the Hirsch House is among relatively few extant buildings in our city designed by Rudolph. It is undoubtedly among the most important works of modern architecture within the Upper East Side Historic District. Every aspect of its sculptural facade of steel and dark glass was deliberately and precisely composed. In The City Observed, 1979, Paul Goldberger extols its many virtues. The facade reflects interior functions perfectly, yet it works equally well as a composition in its own right. It is strong, yet always restrained, which permits it to blend gracefully into its older surroundings. Rarely has any New York building front managed to make so powerful a statement of its own and yet achieve such quiet urbanity at the same time. We believe that the currently proposed alteration to that exceptional facade, reducing the depth of the entry, would diminish and detract from Rudolph's original refined design. We respectfully request that the Commission reject this application.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Kelvin Dickinson. I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you can please state your name, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Kelvin Dickinson, are you able to unmute your line?
Oh. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Kelvin Dickinson, and I am president of the Paul Rudolph Institute for Modern Architecture, which also represents the Paul Rudolph estate. I'm here today to encourage you to vote against the proposed alteration of the existing facade of 101 East 63rd Street, which is known as the Alexander Hirsch residence and more notably the Halston residence. Paul Rudolph designed a modernist oasis for Mr. Hirsch, who wanted a place to escape to while still being in the heart of Manhattan. The house later went from being a private refuge to a celebrity hotspot known for its notorious parties when it was sold to the fashion designer Halston in the 1970s. The project's street facade consists of a composition of steel and dark glass in a tripartite horizontal configuration, a base mostly made up of a solid garage door and recessed entrance, a layered middle portion, and a projecting upper floor acting as a traditional cornice. In many of his projects, Rudolph intentionally recessed the building entrance so that visitors had to discover where to access the world he had created beyond. He would suggest as a clue through a series of peeled reveals or an oversized opening that the entrance could be found if a passerby were to explore further. Like the Halston residence, our own headquarters at the nearby Modulator building, which you saw earlier, on East 58th Street, reflects Rudolph's characteristic recessed entrance and tripartite facade, a motif he returned to almost 25 years later after the Hirsch residence. The proposed alteration includes changes to the facade at the recessed building entrance. The effect of this change will remove Rudolph's original intention to recess and obscure the residential entrance from the street. Not only will the relocated door inappropriately move forward, giving it a flattened appearance during the day, but the recessed lighting above the door will also be altered in depth, changing the appearance of the facade at night. The Paul Rudolph Institute and the Paul Rudolph Estate encourage members of the Landmarks Commission to vote, as did Community Board 8, and against this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Lucy Levine of the Historic Districts Council. I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you can please unmute your line and state your name, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC shares the concerns of our colleagues at Docomomo, New York Tri-State, and of our colleagues at the other organizations who have already spoken about the proposed modifications to the entrance at Paul Rudolph's Halston residence. This proposal seems to be an unnecessary and arbitrary change to the recesses of the entry, which should be left alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Nuha Ansari, and I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you can please unmute your line and state your name, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Chair Carroll and Honourable Commissioners, my name is Nuha Ansari and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts. Friends Preservation Committee believes that the proposed modifications to the entrance of 101 East 63rd will result in a significant alteration to Paul Rudolph's design intent. The residence was Rudolph's first building in New York City and stands as a rare example of his celebrated smaller scale urban interventions. As our colleague at the Paul Rudolph Foundation noted, at 101 East 63rd Street, Paul Rudolph took the design of a classical New York City townhouse and inverted it with a projecting top floor and a recessed base, placing it in conversation with its neighboring brownstones. Rudolph deliberately set back the garage door and entrance from the lot line to create a sequence of spaces from the public to the private areas of the house, of which the recessed entrance in shadow is an integral part, a place of transition from the street to the interior of the building. The proposed modifications would pull the entrance forward, placing it on the same plane as rooms on the second and third floors so that it no longer reads as a recessed entry. This would be contrary to Paul Rudolph's design intent. For all these reasons, we urge the Landmarks Preservation Commission to deny the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker will be calling in through a phone number. It's a 212, last 3 digits are 373. And I'll be allowing you to talk now. And so if you could please unmute your line and state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
This is Theodore Grunwald. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I recently led the effort to save Raymond Hood's now destroyed McGraw-Hill building lobby and sued the owner and commission in pursuit of that preservation goal. Paul Rudolph's 1966 townhouse at 101 East 63rd Street is one of our city's most revered examples of late modern residential architecture. A masterpiece by an acclaimed architect of international stature, it is one of only 3 Rudolph works in New York that New York City is fortunate to have. Like an all-black Louise Nevelson shadow box of the same period, the sleek, flat black steel, in conjunction with the satin sheen of the black tinted glass, would prove extraordinarily influential, inspiring the all-black 140 Broadway of Gordon Bunshaft with its Noguchi Cube perched on its once Travertine Plaza, and countless other all-black buildings of this era around the world. Like a Louise Nevelson shadow box, recessions and projections within the organizing structural frame are carefully calculated for visual effect. Any tampering with this balancing act of recession and projection, such as is proposed by filling in the deep entry void, will upset the extremely subtle asymmetric balance of Rudolph's virtuoso composition. My own place in the village, while certainly no landmark, does also have a ground floor entry where vagrancy can be a challenge. When my entry door becomes a urinal every year during SantaCon, one reaches for the hose and power washes the mess away. If opening the door disturbs someone's slumber, that's usually sufficient to set them on their way. One does not make irrevocable changes to an architectural masterpiece, particularly if, per LPC policy, a chain across the recess, stoop, or areaway is the preferred way to address vagrancy and is regularly recommended by this body, as I would like to remind the commissioners. We hear a lot about defensive design, spikes placed on planters, dividers placed on benches. Much of this is avoidable when a property looks inhabited. Street people instinctively know when a property is vacant, particularly one that has been uninhabited for as many years as this one. When this architectural masterpiece's new caretaker, Mr. Tom Ford, takes up residence and signs of life appear, such as plantings and lights, the problem will be seen to disappear and not require such radical architectural intervention. When such incidents do occur, and they will, it is not something beyond the ability of a capable resident houseman or woman to address. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bill, the last name provided. I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. Yes, my name is Bill Greaves. I'm really just speaking on behalf of myself as someone who loves this building. I would ask you to please reject this application. The photograph at the beginning of it actually makes a case against it because it shows that this facade is a composition of planes in which it's very carefully calibrated so that shadow lines fall lower and higher based on how far the planes are set back from each other. And it really is a game of inches. And in certain lighting conditions, it will radically change the appearance of this facade, even just small moving a plane forward, backwards or forwards a few inches. Thinking of Paul Rudolph's drawings of his buildings, they always, showed specific, use the shadow lines to show these changes in depths. It's such an important part of this building. Also, by changing he also placed the lights in the soffit above that door at the front edge. The way they're doing it now, if they move that door forward, those lights are going to scallop against the door because they'll be right up against it. I was just thinking, you wouldn't change one word in the first stanza of Proof Rock, and you shouldn't change a plane on this masterpiece of modern design. So, private citizen who loves this building.
Thank you. All right, we do not have any other signups, and I do not see any hands raised presently. So I'll note that we also received letters from the New York Landmarks Conservancy recommending denial, stating that pulling the entry door forward would significantly diminish the composition, and a letter from the Third Church of Scientists recommending approval. And Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends denial as well. I'll turn it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to turn back to the applicants and ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
Yes, we would. There were a couple of things that were said today that were incorrect from those that were requesting denial. One is that they were saying that the entry door was being moved up to the same plane as the second floor dressing room, which is not the case. And we can show that in the section If we can go back to this section. So you can see that it is still set back 11 inches from the plane of the dressing room above. Second, and very importantly, is that the door opens out right now, and there have been occasions when it was impossible for the owner to actually enter or exit his home because of people that were blocking the entry. And the only way to address that is really for the door to open in. And if the door were to open in with the existing vestibule size, there would be insufficient space to back up to it. So it is a matter of safety, and it is an important issue.
I would also like to add, it's Valerie Campbell again from Kramer 11, is that the design team, in consultation with the owner, listened very carefully to the feedback they got after the community board hearing. We worked with staff to make changes that responded to that feedback, and we think will make the house, will address in a meaningful way the issues that the owner has been confronted with the existing recessed entry and outswinging door. But in, we think, a very modest, respectful way. This is an owner who is very concerned about keeping the original architecture of the house, but he also needs to be able to live in and be able to sort of exit and enter the building in a way that makes sense and is safe. And also he wants to try to be able to keep it, he doesn't want the entryway to become a collection bin for trash, and wants to be able to keep it tidy and be able to maintain the building in the condition that it should be maintained. I don't know if the commissioners were able to get a copy. We did also have a letter from Stephen Harris, supporting the application and basically saying that he thought it was a very modest adjustment that was appropriate to the building.
Okay, thank you. We do have, I think, some more questions. Commissioner Goldblum, please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. A couple of things. I noticed that there's all right, the door swings in. Is it going to be in the same plane as it was before and with the same general relationship to the side light?
It would, yes, would be. It would have to be the same.
And did you ever explore, not that I'm saying it's better or worse, but either a gate or a chain or a pocket that goes into the garage or something that would be temporary or, restricted in nature that wouldn't necessarily involve such a permanent move?
We did look at a gate and felt that it modified the look of the facade too drastically. So we discarded that as an option.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? Okay, I think we don't have any other questions, so we'll move to our discussion. All right, and everybody should be unmuting. All right, Commissioner Holford Smith, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll now begin our discussion. And this application is to relocate the door, which is currently set 4 feet back, move it forward 19 inches so that it would still be set back 2 feet 5 inches, and then make some modifications to the side light and side panels around it. And we've heard a lot of testimony today about the relationship of planes, and I think that will factor into our discussion. So we'll go ahead. Commissioner Bland, would you like to start this one?
I figured you might ask me. I should tell you, if you don't know that, I mean, who would know this except me? As a 14-year-old in, I guess it was junior high school, I first encountered a picture of a Paul Rudolph building on the beach in Florida. Said to myself and my parents, I want to be an architect.
Wow.
So I am an architect of 60 years standing now at this point or something like that, and have always admired Paul Rudolph's buildings almost everywhere except when they were fatally flawed and fell down or were torn down. But this one certainly is not an example of this. It's a masterwork. You can just look at it and know this is one of the great buildings, one of the great houses, certainly, of our city. So never did I think 19 inches mattered so much. But, you know, the almost unanimous testimony against moving it really did persuade me. I mean, I had to study this picture long and hard to see what the change really was. But I think inches can matter in this case, and for me at least, balancing the utility of what was suggested as the change, which I still don't think changes much, as was suggested by Commissioner Jefferson's question. Given that, and also this very delicate balancing of planes, I have to agree that it's just not worth it to make this change. You know, if there was some overwhelmingly convincing utility to it, maybe, but for so little gain, I don't see the need. I think reversing the door to swing in, I mean, most residential doors do swing in, not out. That may be an appropriate thing to do, but not to bring it forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum.
Okay, thanks. You know, I went on Google Street View to go look at this. And the first thing that you notice, if you do that, is that the picture that was on there was taken with a big plywood box covering this entry. So obviously someone thought it was a problem. And this is tough for me because on the one hand, you know, you got to hold on to every Paul Rudolph building you got because they're so unfairly torn down. They're just like not loved enough. And if you look at the first photograph, the Esto photograph that was in the package, you see a realized version of the way Paul Rudolph designed. I mean, he designed using shadow. Look at all of his renderings. They're all about the shadows and, you know, the planes and the placement of the planes. So I do think that this image where you have that dark black box at the entry would probably not happen if you did the thing that you're proposing to do. Because the thing that's casting the shadow is the beam immediately above it and the jamb to the left of it. And if you're getting your plane closer to that, you're going to lose that. That's the reason I feel that way is not just because it's a change to the original design, but I do think that in this house with this particular arrangement, you do have the possibility of, let's say, a concealed pull across gate or a slide across gate or a chain that or a series of, this is the kind of project where a little creative thinking could produce a solution that solved the problem in a way that didn't permanently alter the design. And I think in terms of the Lescaz house, which was cited as a precedent, I think the difference there is the architecture. The architecture of Lescaz, in my personal view, I'm no Lescot's expert or anything, but the way I look at that is that it's very much about a flat, thin Corbusian surface with a deep recessed place. And the fact that that was brought forward didn't really change that basic relationship, which was a much simpler kind of on-off skin hole relationship. Here, it's all about various planes. And I think that here the depth issue is more critical than it was in the Lescot's.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Jefferson.
I agree with the comments of my fellow commissioners.
Okay. Commissioner Holford Smith.
I agree as well. I think, as Michael said, that Paul Rudolph designs it in shadows, and 19 inches does matter. I think it matters more to the architecture than I think it will in the effect that they're looking for in terms of sort of protecting the entry. So I think, again, to Michael's point of maybe a more a different solution to trying to keep, if this really is a problem, to keep people out of the doorway. But I really do hope that when it's more occupied on a daily basis, that having a presence in the house will keep people away. But I can't find that acceptable, the proposal.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chapin.
No, this is a really beautiful building, which deserves to be an individual landmark. And as a result, I don't feel that I can approve the change. But obviously a solution needs to be found to the situation. And I'm not sure that just having someone living there on a regular basis is going to do that. So I'm hoping that they can take another look at the inside. I understand that Tom Ford has been very respectful of and going back to internal changes that were appropriate, but maybe there's some changes that can be done to the vestibule and the entry to the garage that could allow to be able to change the entry door. And also while preserving the plane of the door, and also to do some other things like, provide the water, access, which I think is a good idea for cleaning the front and so forth. So I'm hoping that they can come up with another solution, which they might have to bring back to us, which could be some kind of a gate or that goes away, during most of the time or whatever. But I think, unfortunately, this solution with this particular architectural statement just unfortunately is going to have too much impact on the original design of a building, which at this point, due to the owners who have really done a nice job of bringing it back to what it should be, that we shouldn't permit a fundamental change, which because of the importance of the planes and the shadows, this really, unfortunately, is a fundamental change.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chu.
Oh, I agree with all my fellow commissioners' comments. I think that even in relation to previous applications where we talked about an existing house with dormers that we felt could not be removed, I feel like altering the depth on Rudolph's facade, which is all about depth and shadow play in planes, that it would be a huge change to the original concept. So therefore I find it inappropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg.
I have to agree with all the previous commissioners' comments and would suggest to the applicant that they look, because I am concerned about the issue of egress, an in-swing door and modifying the vestibule so they don't move the plane of the door.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Master.
I agree with all of the other comments. that the commissioners have made.
Okay. All right, so I think there's no support for changing the plane of the door here, given the significance of the planes and the shadows to the design. But I think that there's been some openness to finding another creative solution to the problem, which could be something less permanent, or in the form of a gate or sliding door or something that can be concealed. So we won't take an action, and we'll give the applicants the opportunity to think about what that creative solution might be if they choose to come back. But we won't vote to approve this change as proposed today. So we'll take no action, and that concludes our public hearing of February 28th. And I want to thank everybody for participating, for the public who participated today, and most importantly to all of the commissioners who really worked hard. And this was a very long day. And for our 3 new commissioners, what a way to start with a great varied agenda and a long day. And so we thank you all for your service and your commitment to our work and to our designated buildings. So thank you all.